What is up, everybody? It is Tuesday, January 31st, and we've got some big news. We've got a Big 12 football schedule finally. It took some time. I know everybody's eagerly been anticipating this one. We've known the non-conference schedule for a while. You get your Central Arkansas. They're going to Arizona State and South Alabama. Those are the first 3 weeks of the season. So we've known that for a while just because of how non-conference schedules work and all that's kind of taken care of years in advance. But for the actual conference slate, it's taken year by year. And this one's, been one that everybody's been looking forward to for quite some time, simply because you've got four new schools joining the conference, excuse me. That's going to be Cincinnati, Central Florida, BYU, and Houston. And so that now with OU and Texas sticking around this season, that now puts us at 14 Big 12 schools. And the Big 12, when they were just at 10, they were able to play that round robin, 9 weeks of conference play. Everybody plays everybody. It was, nice and tidy. And this year was going to be a little crazy. And so that's, I think, where a lot of the interest was how's this thing going to look? And so now we finally have our OSU schedule. It's going to be our first conference game that we're looking at for Oklahoma State is going to be on September 23rd at Iowa State. So we've got some common opponents that everybody's been used to over the past decade. You've got Iowa State, Kansas, West Virginia, and of course the big news, Bedlam's going to continue for one more year. They're going to play in Stillwater on November 4th, and probably what will be the last Bedlam game for the foreseeable future, in Stillwater at least. There might be another Norman one next year. In 2024, time will tell on that. But I think our most interesting aspect in all of this is that OSU is one of only two schools in the Big 12 who's going to play all four of the new teams. So they're going to be hosting Cincinnati, and they're going to be hosting BYU. That's going to be the regular season finale. And then you're also going to get games at UCF, which is going to be in the Orlando area, and then down at Houston, Dana Holgerson, all that lovely stuff there. So I think that's super interesting when we look at that, because the only other old Big 12 school, I don't know how we want to phrase that quite just yet, but of the 10 original teams, only one other is playing all four of them, and that's going to be West Virginia, who OSU happens to be playing on October 21st in Morgantown. So a lot of travel. So if you're big into the traveling for the games, it's going to put a lot of miles on your cars. I'd start saving up the gas money right about now because, there's some treks. Arizona State, Iowa State's the closest, I believe. Iowa State or Houston, those are probably about 7 or 8 hours. But then UCF and West Virginia and Arizona State, those are going to be some hauls if you're driving there. So all in all, I think when we look at this, I think the first big takeaway that I think a lot of fans are going to be not upset about, but maybe a little let down by, is that you're not facing any of those regular Texas schools. You get Houston, but that means there's no Baylor, no TCU, no Texas Tech. And I thought Texas Tech would have been a great matchup this year just because you have former Texas Tech quarterback Alan Bowman now playing for the Cowboys. And I think that would have been one that people keyed in on and people might have been a little interested to see. I know in the age of transfers, it's not always the biggest story anymore to play your former team because it happens so often now. But nevertheless, I thought that would have been an interesting game. And I think when we look at Texas and Baylor and TCU and how kind of vital those games have been for OSU in the past couple of years in terms of looking at the Big 12 picture and bowl season and how it all comes together, those always have seemed to be pretty important games that I think fans really looked forward to. So I think there's a little bit of a letdown not having any of those schools on there, but the consolation prize is you get to see four brand new schools in the conference in one calendar year, and I think for a consolation prize, that's pretty good. Overall, we're dealing with the same non-conference issues we've had before. We've seen with OSU, and that you got Central Arkansas and South Alabama, maybe not the most exciting of games. And last season, Arizona State came to Stillwater. Now they're OSU is going to be going to Arizona State, so you kind of lose one of those more exciting non-conference games to the road. But all in all, I think when we look at this Big 12 schedule, I think the back-to-back, the Cowboys are going to play Kansas State and Kansas on back-to-back weeks, just how they did this year when they went up to Kansas on 2 consecutive weeks. And when you look at how those games went, I think you can kind of pinpoint that's where the season started to go south for the Cowboys. So I don't want to call it a redemption tour is probably making light of it, but nevertheless, I think those are two games that'll be interesting to watch. And you've got OU, who's that's going to be a great game as always, and especially now that we kind of have an idea of how much longer they're going to be around for. This is going to be one of the last ones, nonetheless. So I think that's super interesting, and yeah, getting to see these four new schools, Cincinnati and BYU, coming to Stillwater, and then OSU going to Orlando and Houston. In Orlando, they'll play UCF, and that's a school they've never played before. So mark that off the bingo card if you got it. So all in all, I think it's good that we finally have this schedule. Everybody's been waiting on it. It's good to finally be able to look at it and really figure out what this is all going to look like. And now that we see it, I think there's a lot of interest. I think maybe the best way to describe this schedule is just fun. There's some fun games here. So yeah, I think when we look at the OSU schedule in general, it's a good one. It's one to be excited for, and we'll see it kick off in September.